All right, everybody. My guest today is a travel industry veteran whose background includes work in destination marketing, association management, and product development. In the middle of her career, she left a corporate job to become a travel advisor and soon grew a multi-million-dollar producing agency. Today, she's the founder and CEO of Travel Industry Solutions, a firm that offers legal, marketing, and operational support for travel companies around the country. Sheila Folk, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Brian. Thanks for having me here today.
I'm excited to have you here. We're going to talk about so many people's favorite topic, which is risk management and legal and all those fun things that, many travel entrepreneurs don't like to think about. But before we get there, you started your journey as a travel advisor smack dab in the middle of your career. I think you told me you were like 45 years old. So can you tell us that story? Walk us through that moment and kind of what made you say, I want to shift my career to travel.
Well, my journey is a little bit different than a lot of people because I think a lot of travel advisors get into this business because they love travel. They want to travel. They've been booking their own trips and they think it would be a really fun job. They've been planning itineraries for their friends. And my entry into this industry was not like that. So I was working for a former client's new startup, a hospitality tech startup. And when I went to work for him, it was really only supposed to be part-time. But I ended up working about 80 hours a week, and my daughter was being raised by a nanny, right? I was like, this is not going to work for me. Happened to be talking to one of my neighbors, and he said, you should become a travel agent. And I said, well, can I work from home? Can I make good money? Can I chart my own course and my own path? And he said, absolutely. And I said, okay, how do I sign up?
Yeah.
So that's really how I became a travel advisor. I really didn't care if I was selling shoes, widgets, makeup, as long as I could craft my life in the way that I wanted to craft it and make enough money to support my lifestyle. So that's really how I got into the travel industry as an advisor.
Yeah. Now, that's half the story. I think what a lot of our listeners are thinking is, okay, but how did you get to multiple millions of dollars in sales in a relatively short time?
Well, I'm super type A. I have endless curiosity. And one of the things that I think has been really that has given me the ability to succeed in all of the careers that I've had or jobs that I've had is that I'm willing to do anything. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And I'm going to do it big. And so I'm not afraid to dive in and learn, as I tell a lot of my employees now is you've got to not be afraid to do something that you feel might be beneath you. It's really important for you to look at any job as a learning experience. And nothing's beneath you. So, when I got into the travel business, it was really, really messy. And I thought, all right, Sheila, you've made lots of companies really successful. You've increased their profits. You've really increased their market share. You've been able to really improve their efficiencies without changing too much inside of their business. This is no different. So why not just take a step back instead of freaking out over all of the little things that you don't know and apply some of the learnings that you've had in other positions? And so that's what I did. But failure is not an option for me. It just never has been in my personal life and my professional life. I believe that there's always a path forward. Maybe it doesn't look like that path that you initially laid out, but there is a path forward.
Yeah. So you're achieving success as a travel advisor, rocking and rolling there. And then you start to notice that there is a need in the industry for some legal support, some risk management, things that led you to say, hey, I'm going to start another company here, Travel Industry Solutions. What was that thought process? What was the catalyst for that?
Well, let me just back up. So originally, when I started thinking about TIS, it was because a lot of travel advisors were turning to me. They wanted me to mentor them on how to achieve these record numbers in such a short period of time, handle the volume. So a lot of it started with the tools that I created to create efficiencies inside of my business to help me to connect with my customers in a more efficient and a better way, to help me look professional. Also, how to upsell other products softly or other solutions very softly to increase my commissions. And so I started giving away a lot of my secret sauce. Probably for a couple of years, I was giving away my secret sauce to advisors. And I thought, there's really an opportunity here to provide a product or a solution to travel advisors to help them better communicate with their customers and close sales, more sales, to create more efficiencies. But I will tell you that it was about in my third or fourth year, I experienced a chargeback. And it was from a close personal friend who was also the guardian of my child if I die, because I am a widow. He was my lawyer. He was my best friend, the executor of my estate. And while the chargeback was not against my agency, it was against my supplier, it was really painful. It was really, really hurtful. And it took a lot of time for me to gather all of the communication together to support my supplier. Because I came from an organization that focused on risk management and risk mitigation, I already knew the importance of having legal protection in place. So fortunately, I had that in place. But the experience was so incredibly painful emotionally and in time. And many advisors, operators, they don't think about having legal protection in place. Well, I'd say they do more so now since COVID. But sometimes it's really not attainable. It's not affordable to go out and hire all of these different specialized lawyers. So they may DIY, which is not good. And we've seen so many issues with that. They don't understand how provisions can conflict. They don't understand definitions. Or they go to a solo attorney, relying on them to be an expert in all areas. And they're just not.
Yeah.
So they end up with marginal or mediocre contracts rather than having contracts drafted by lawyers who specialize in each area of their business. So it was first started with the operational piece, then the legal piece. And that's when I had the aha moment. And I said, there's a need to bring affordable solutions to the market that everybody has access to.
Yeah.
And that's how TIS was born.
I love that. Access is so important, especially for solopreneurs or people who are doing this part-time, or, it's something that they weren't trained in. They don't know what they're up against. So giving them that access is such a help. I've heard you describe travel and tourism as the riskiest business in the world. I wonder if you could kind of unpack that statement for us. Tell us, what are some of the risks and why are we in general maybe not aware of them as much as we should be?
Well, first of all, I think that I know that there's a huge issue with synthetic identities that's on the rise globally. It used to be part of the dark web. It's no longer part of the dark web now. The red flags that many travel sellers have had in the past are red flags today. And what I mean by that is a last minute booking by somebody you don't know. You have a last minute booking. They're paying with a credit card, but their name is not on the booking. Those are still red flags, but what's happened is people are creating synthetic identities So they're creating an identity tied to a real person. They're gaining access to their credit cards, and maybe there's a little bit longer booking window. So with the rise of synthetic identities, also paying online has created a lot of issues with fraud. So that creates a whole lot of issues. Also, I think that people today try to solve their problems with chargebacks rather than addressing the operator or the agent or the supplier. And so it puts our businesses at risk. There's a lot of risk around also this industry because we're expected to know so much about every inch of the earth. I have never been in a job where I have been asked so many crazy questions, not only about entry and exit requirements, but what can I say and not say that's not going to put my business at risk? How do I fulfill my duty of care without crossing the line? I've been asked all sorts of crazy stuff. I was just on a call yesterday and I asked the audience, I said, how many of you have been asked how many paddle strokes it is from the beach in Thailand to a limestone rock offshore? I mean, how many times are you asked for that level of specificity in any of your jobs? And you're expected to know it. And by the way, if you say it, are you going to expose yourself because it was 50 strokes, not 20? Are they going to do a chargeback as a result of this? There are lots of crazy things that happen that put our businesses at risk. And many people who are sellers are not thinking about those little nuances to protect their business.
Yeah, wow, that is terrifying to think about in some ways. So for listeners who have not been through that chargeback experience, can you kind of give them an overview of what is happening when they get a chargeback, what's going to be expected of them, and what are the chances that they are going to win the dispute versus, the credit card processor claw back funds?
Yeah, so, we've experienced chargebacks even inside of TIS. So the customer will initiate a chargeback with their credit card and they'll give a reason code. So based on the credit card company, you'll want to go in and understand what the reason code is. Is it, non-delivery of services? Is it a duplicate charge? It's really important that you understand the reason code for the chargeback, because that's how you're going to build your defense. In travel, you really need to have some key things. You need your booking confirmations. You need confirmations that they've traveled. You need your communication between you and your customer. You're going to need your signed terms and conditions. That's a start for having all of the pieces and parts in place to defend. You can go online to companies like Chargeback Gurus, where they will delineate some of the chargeback codes and what they mean. So an important part of your defense is going to be summarizing it and providing a lot of the documentation. Now, depending on the processor that you're using, some will not give you a second chance. So if you lose, you're not going to get a second chance. Some of the processors do allow a second chance. Now, here's another component of this that people need to understand is there's still a human on the other side that's reading your defense. And so there's no guarantee that you're going to win the dispute, even if you have everything. But if you have a better chance if you have everything in order, you have it summarized, you have it highlighted, you've submitted as much defense as possible. I really recommend if you're an OTA, for example, or a larger company, that you really rely on a defense service. So somebody like a Chargeback Gurus who can offer that defense and has science behind it. But there still is no guarantee because it is a contract between your customer and the credit card. But you can do things up front to help mitigate chargebacks, including chargeback provisions in your terms and conditions. How will those be handled? So having all of the proper defenses in place will help you in your strategy to win the dispute.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. Now, I think a lot of travel industry professionals may, rightly or wrongly, sort of assume, well, I have some insurance. I have corporate insurance. I have errors and omissions insurance. Doesn't that mean I'm kind of protected? Like, I don't have to worry about that stuff. Is that true, or is that like badly misguided?
That's badly misguided. As a matter of fact, our number one insurer for E&O insurance in the US is now requiring that you show a copy of your terms and conditions. So that's an important component to booking, especially if you have, if you're booking packages. So FIT packages, multi-component packages. That's a huge component. Think about it. If one issue arises with one component, it usually has a spillover effect to the downstream components. So you've really got to have a solid terms and conditions in place. But I know that that's a big requirement now for the E&O insurance providers. Do you have terms and conditions? And some of them are asking for copies of those terms and conditions. So the terms and condition are the E&O insurance, rather. It will provide your legal defense and protect you against errors and things of that nature. I'm not an insurance company, so you do need to look at or insurance agent. You do need to look at your policy. But you still need to outline the terms and conditions of the booking and where your liability begins and ends. And if you have groups, what's going to happen if somebody has bad conduct? What is the limitation of liability? There's a whole host of things that are included in terms and conditions.
Okay, so terms and conditions, that sounds like something that I copy and paste off someone else's website, right? Or wrong?
Wrong. Okay, there is a huge, let me explain something here. There is a big difference. You have a client terms and conditions. So those are the traveler terms and conditions. And then on your website, you have a terms of use. The terms of use is the rules of the road for your using your website. It has nothing to do with your traveler terms and conditions. And by all means, do not copy and paste other people's terms and conditions or terms of use. They need to be crafted for your business structure. In addition, stop copying and pasting clauses. I see this all the time. Travel advisors are like, hey, I saw this in Susie's client terms and conditions, and this sounds really good. Maybe I should add it to mine. Wrong. I mean, you have no idea what you're doing in negating other clauses inside of your terms and conditions document.
Yeah. So you mentioned packages. A lot of our listeners are putting together packages. It's transportation, accommodations, meals, attractions, admissions, all that together. Explain a little bit more how a problem with one vendor can spill over into your entire package and put you at risk, even if you're just sort of, the middleman or the middle operator in that transaction.
Yeah. So let's assume that your driver doesn't show up. And you're supposed to be going someplace and you're meeting the guide someplace. So your driver doesn't show up. Your client doesn't get to go on the tour because they don't have transportation. Or let's say there's a waiting period for the guide. The guide is going to wait for you for 45 minutes and then they leave. So now your client has missed the tour. Your client's going to come back to you, right, to have a refund on that tour. Well, if you don't have terms and conditions around the booking set, then it's likely you're going to have to go back and refund that client if you don't spell out all of the terms and conditions. So, or let's say you're not available or something happens and you can't find a guide, or you haven't reviewed the documents with your client before they've left. To say, hey, if you have an emergency, you need to call this and this number. If you can't get a hold of somebody, grab transportation and get there yourself, and we'll deal with it after the fact. So there's a lot of things that travel advisors or tour operators can do ahead of time to prevent these types of situations to put their business at risk. One of the things that I always did was I had a 2-week pre-departure call. And I know it's not ideal when we're busy, but you know what's not ideal? when a situation happens when your client is traveling and you're asleep and you can't help them. And I am sure your listeners on this call have had this problem many, many times where your customer has emailed or called you or texted you and said, the driver hasn't showed up. What do I do? Well, did you look at your voucher? Did you look at the phone number on the voucher? Did you look at the in-destination emergency travel number? Did you go to the front desk of your hotel and say, my driver's not here and I have to get there and meet my guide, or I have to get to the airport? Call me a taxi because I can't get a hold of the person. You need to have backup plans. And those are the things that cause downstream impacts for your clients when you are not prepared and you have not laid out everything to your customer and the expectations that each party has. Yeah. And that can be done in your terms. It's done in your client communication. Your client communication is equally as important, Brian. When people come into TIS and they start to look at like the email sequences that we have, and they always look at the booking email, which is your booking confirmation. It's the one that I send out that says, hey, we've deposited your booking. You know, your final payment's going to be due here. Here's how it's going to work. These are the next steps. So depending if it's a cruise, if it's a land package, if, it's whatever, these are the next steps. Oh, by the way, if you haven't purchased travel insurance, you have 14 days to do so from the date of the deposit, yada, yada. Here's how you can do this. Here's how documentation works. Here's how entry requirements work. Here's what you need to know about passports. Here's a link to my terms and conditions. Here's what you're responsible for. Here's what I'm responsible for. It's about 2 pages long, but there's a reason for it.
Yeah. So by including that in your sort of transactional communication flow, does that provide some protections in case of a chargeback or other action?
Absolutely. So, there's a lot of people out there that are creating their communication with their clients, but they're not thinking about how it ties into the protection of their agency and the protection for their suppliers. So when you think about your communication, I always say it should do 3 things for you. 1, it should protect you. 2, it should create efficiencies in your business. And 3, they should make you more money. Those are the 3 things. Skip the pretty email headers. Your clients don't care about it. They care about what is inside of the email and what action they need to take. And so the cadence is important. What's included is important. The continuous reminders about payments, about entry requirements, about travel insurance, all of those things are really, really important. And they provide an extra level of defense in the event of a chargeback or a dispute.
Yeah.
There's no way that the client can say that you didn't communicate it to them.
Yeah. Wow, that's good. So the travel insurance piece is particularly interesting to me because I know agents are not allowed to require travel insurance. They can't package it automatically. But it is important for them to make the offer, right? Because if you don't make the offer, that can get you in trouble too. Is that correct?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of my friends who's also a TIS customer, she was booking a last minute trip for a friend of hers. And so she didn't have her sign any documents and she never made the offer of travel insurance. And she ended up in a situation where the customer didn't go. I don't know all of the specifics around it, but I know that the customer came back and tried to tie it all to the lack of offer of travel insurance. And so she ended up eating several $1,000s for this trip. So absolutely, you should be offering it. And I have really strong feelings about travel insurance. And I think I may have shared this with you once before. And that is that we should not be looking to have our clients just sign a waiver or a declination. Our clients should also be signing yes in the event that they do purchase it. And here's why. And I've had this happen to me. One is insurance laws vary by state. Okay. So some states require a refund if a client cancels a trip, some don't. Each insurance company has their own policies. Are you in penalty when you cancel? Are you not in penalty? Your policy covers this, but it doesn't cover this. So when we recommend travel insurance, we want our customers to not only understand what our role is in recommending it, but what the customer's role is in choosing it, in understanding the coverages of the policy. So we want them to say, I, Sheila Folk, traveler, understand the decision I'm making and the coverages of the policy that I'm choosing. And that's equally as important. And I've actually had conversations with some of the biggest travel insurance companies to say, you're doing your advisor community a disservice by just giving them this short little declination waiver.
Yeah, well, that's really good. So for tour operators, people who are maybe taking groups out, some tour operators go on every trip themselves with the group. Are there any specific risks that are unique to being in that group package situation, or going out, being the guide? Anything else in the tour packaging space that these people need to think about beyond what a travel advisor needs to think about?
Sure. Well, I think that tour operators are also travel advisors. It's just that they're packaging tours. But I think the biggest risk that any tour operator faces is whether or not they're going to be a net or a gross agency. So are they going to collect the card information from their customer and then pay the suppliers directly? Or are you going to collect the money into your bank account and then pay the suppliers? And then you add your own markup. So you already have collected the markup. So I think that if you are and this is the way a lot of tour operators operate, is they're collecting the money into their bank account. You better make sure you have really great contracts in place. And then you've got to decide, does the supplier have any liability exposure, or are you taking it all on yourself? And in a lot of cases, these operators don't want to reveal who their suppliers are. So they're bearing the biggest risk. So understand what your risk exposure is by doing that. And you absolutely 110% cannot create your own terms and conditions. You have really got to have something solid in place. And the other consideration is, do you have upstream contracts with your suppliers? So there's an example that just happened. I would say within the last year, there was an operator who booked who had a group going to South America. And they didn't like one of the tours. So they did a chargeback on the whole entire trip, not just the tour. And they got all their friends to do a chargeback.
Oh, no.
On the entire group.
Wow.
So how could this have been mitigated? Could, it been addressed through communication with the traveler? Could it have been addressed with communication or contracts with your supplier? There's a lot of unknowns that I have, but having upstream contracts with your suppliers, in addition to having the terms and conditions with your travelers, is super important. And then deciding what your risk tolerance is. You need to really understand your risk tolerance and what could possibly happen.
Yeah. Wow. That is a scary thought. Now, you mentioned, does the money come to your bank account? Does it go straight to suppliers? That makes me think about payment processing because somebody starting a tour company or a travel advisory today has a ton of different options for payment processing, right? They can, do it in person with a little Square reader on their cell phone. They can set up something on the web and use a third-party payment processor, like Stripe, Venmo, all sorts of things. Or you can work with a software provider who says, hey, we'll do the payment processing for you, if you run your entire company through our software. Pros and cons, I'm sure, to each of those. What do you recommend new travel entrepreneurs think about when they choose what direction they're going to go on payment processing?
Okay, well, let's talk about the pros. If you're using a platform that already has built-in payment processing for you, the pro is you can get set up almost immediately. You have the power of their network. So the power of their network is important because there are a lot of processors who don't want to work inside of the travel sector anymore. So they already have the volume and they've connected with the companies that will allow travel transactions. So those are two great pros for having connectivity with the solution that's provided inside of the platform that you're utilizing. Here's the con, in my opinion. And it really comes, the primary con revolves around chargebacks. You're now relying on a third party to defend you. And so you don't understand the strength behind that third party, their understanding of chargebacks, how to defend you. Are they even defending you? The access, to that person to have communication with them around the defense. So they're just going to come back to you and they're going to take that money from you. And if you don't pay it, they're going to lock you out of your account.
Ouch.
Okay, so now you've lost a lot in terms of your bookings. And you may or may not be paying more. So you really need to look at that. There are pros and cons on both sides of the table. But I think, ultimately, again, you have to decide what is right for you and understand what the pros and cons are.
Yeah, boy, that is really important to think about. So tell our listeners a little bit about the different sorts of products you have at Travel Industry Solutions, how you can help them navigate some of these difficulties and hopefully make sure these are just worst case scenarios that never actually come across their desk.
Yeah, so I started TIS 4 years ago out of, obviously an abundance of need. We are a subscription-based product, and the reason why is because we offer tens and tens and tens and thousands of dollars of legal solutions at a very low cost. We warranty our product. We keep our lawyers on retainer. We monitor laws. We keep agreements updated. We have technology wrapped around our solution. So we are an annual subscription-based product. We do have 3 tiers. We offer everything under the sun that you could possibly need for your travel business. We currently serve travel advisors in the US only. We just finished our Canadian product, so we will be entering the Canadian product. But everything from terms and conditions to group leader agreements, independent contractor agreements, website policies. That's a biggie. A lot of people are missing a privacy policy. You are mandated by law to have it if you are collecting data on your customers. We offer a host of email communications, forms, education, client touch points, as well as ongoing support. And a lot of people don't realize that if they have a highly specialized need that we currently do not address or offer through our solutions, we're happy to connect you with one of our expert legal advisors to do something bespoke for you. We've had that happen quite a bit. But getting set up is super easy. And that's the beauty of our platform. You go choose a plan, you enter our platform, you set up your agency profile. It takes 3 minutes and your contracts are ready to go. We've built in our own e-sign. We have a secure credit card vault so you can collect payment card information securely. We will begin expansion outside of the US in 2025, and we will expand into what we consider to be the tour operator space, where you might be a tour guide. You might be a transportation provider. Maybe you are a DMC or you're a tour operator serving travel agents. You're a B2B. We do have group contracts, both net and gross, and we will begin selling those toward the end of November. So those would be appropriate for tour operators and or travel advisors who are doing group bookings, destination wedding. That'll be another one, the destination wedding package. But we've got a host of solutions. We are growing. I mean, it is insane how fast we are growing, how much our team has grown. But we hope to add lots of other services in the future: fraud detection, chargeback defense. That's one. We'll be offering bookkeeping and tax prep services. So everything related to the business of your business.
Yeah, super helpful for people that want to learn more about the company or maybe follow it or follow you on social media. Where should they be going online to do those things?
Yeah, so it's travelindustrysolutions.com. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. I would say we're most active on Facebook and LinkedIn. We do have a private group, so you can join our group. Please, no soliciting inside of our group. That's a rule that we have.
Yeah.
But feel free to comment and collaborate with other folks that are inside of our group. And of course, you can always email us at hello@travelindustrysolutions.com. And we do have a support team who will answer any questions. We can set up a live demo, walk you through the platform. And of course, if you do email us at hello@travelindustrysolutions.com, you will receive our weekly newsletter. I am very sensitive about bombarding people. I don't like it. I know what it's like as a travel advisor. So we don't bombard you, but at least you can stay on top of any new changes or releases or guidance. For instance, the Department of Transportation rule that goes into effect October 28th. That's huge. So you'll get some information on that.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, before we let you go, we have some questions we ask everybody, and these are just for fun. So no pressure. You can answer off the top of your head. When you book travel for yourself, are you going to choose a window seat or an aisle seat?
Window.
Yeah. Why is that?
I like to sleep, but it's aisle if it's short. If it's a short flight, I'll choose an aisle.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. So what's one thing in your carry-on that you wouldn't travel without?
My computer. I know it's terrible. I'm kind of a workaholic. I can't go anywhere without my computer.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. All right. If you had a free airline pass and a week with nothing else to do, where would you head next?
The Abacos. That's where my heart is. I go to the Abacos over and over and over and over again. I've been going there for decades.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't argue with that. Last question. What is one thing you have seen or done on the road that you wish you could go back and experience again with someone you love?
Oh, boy. That's a tough one that I've done or seen. That I could do with somebody I love. I would say, and it was recently within the last couple of years, I would go back to Bora Bora, to the Four Seasons. I took my daughter there. She was only like 10 at the time, I think. And I'd go back with somebody I love.
Yeah, that sounds great. Hope you can make it happen one day. Sheila Folk, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Brian. Have a great day.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us for this interview. I want to let you know that conversations like this are just part of what you will hear if you tune into a full episode of the Gather and Go podcast. When you listen, you'll get travel news you may not hear anywhere else, along with some really helpful road tips, some smart analysis, and maybe even a hot take from me about issues that are impacting travel right now. Now, you can hear this full episode along with many others by searching for Gather and Go in your favorite podcast player, or you can click on the link right below this video or one of the videos right here to my side. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.